Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Citrix session. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I have with me Bill Sutton, the Director of Services for XenTegra. Bill, how's it going?
Going well, Andy. How about you?
I am doing well.
Very
we
good.
also have with us the authors of this blog, Kelly and Daniel. Daniel, Kelly, how are you guys?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, and guys, as we talked about, the idea here is to give people in the world of Citrix specifically an avenue for catching up on blogs. And we encourage people to let us know if there's blogs that they would like to have the authors on for us to go through. But Kelly and Daniel are responsible for this blog. This blog is called New On-Prem License Server Usage Insights Powered by Citrix Cloud. I got to tell you guys, as a guy who's been using Citrix technology since the late 90s, I've needed this for a long time, either in my own environments or customer environments where I had one central place in terms of licensing for the customer, in terms of usage and what they owned. This is great. And I'm believe it or not, I'm extremely excited to talk about Citrix licensing. So with that, I guess we'll jump into the article. Bill, do you have any thoughts before we jump into this?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to echo what you said, Andy. I think this is as a former consultant and administrator for customers, this is a great offering, particularly for those enterprises with far-flung or disparate type of environments, giving them visibility into their licenses and allowing them to track usage, but also gives them the opportunity to be able to reallocate where those licenses are perhaps not needed in one location, but are needed in another location. Makes it a lot more seamless for them to do that. I think it's a great offering.
Yeah, that's great. And that actually brings a topic to my mind: is can they share this information with their value-added reseller, their partner in the space? And I guess if I don't ask that later, remind me. But I think that'd be extremely valuable. But before we do that, Kelly, do you want to give just a little background on who you are?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Kelly Mahoney. I'm a product manager on the Citrix Cloud platform. I am responsible for the License Server Usage Insights new feature, which I'm really excited to talk about today.
All right, great. Thanks, Kelly. Hey, you know what, Kelly? Let me ask you this real quick. So there used to be a video that explained how user device licensing within the Citrix product works. This happened about the time it came out, when we moved from concurrent only to concurrent or user device. Do you remember what video I'm talking about? Are you aware of that one?
I'm actually not.
Daniel, have you ever seen that video?
I don't know if I've seen the actual video, but I certainly know a lot about user device licensing and all of the interesting behaviors and optimizations we do on the license server with that. So CCU, user device, products, edition, model, mixed mode, I've seen it all.
So I think based on that, Daniel, I would love to have another session that's just a deep dive into Citrix licensing. It'll be kind of off the topics of blogs specifically, but I would love to have a webinar that we record to kind of go through a podcast we record to go through that topic. And if there's any way, and there used to be a thing called Citrix TV that's now kind of moved to YouTube, and that particular video never made it over to YouTube TV that I know of, and I've wanted to show it to customers ever since I lost it. But it's really good at explaining how if you log in from a device, the device gets a license, but if that same user logs in somewhere else and it's cartoonish and it's got some good graphics that go along with it, I would love to see that revisited because people are really confused a lot of times by Citrix licensing.
All right, I'll have to see if I can track down this video you're referring to now. I remember Citrix TV. Yeah, and some of it ported to YouTube, but not all of it.
Right. Okay, hey Daniel, do you want to give a quick bio on yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Daniel Habdu. Been working with Citrix for 13 years now. I started out in engineering role, so I was writing the code a lot on the virtual apps and desktop product line, formerly XenApp, formerly Presentation Server. So you guys have gone through a few name changes. And then about 5 years ago now, I transitioned into a product management role and was part of the team that started and currently run and build Citrix Cloud today. So it's been an exciting 5 years as a PM, and one of my responsibilities, along with kind of the core Citrix Cloud platform, is our licensing technology estate. So whenever I'm in a context of a licensing conversation, I always preface it, I don't own pricing and packaging, but I do own kind of the licensing technology, the meters, the dials, the good and the bad, the new and the old. So it's been fun to kind of dig in on licensing, and excited to talk about some of our investments coming to fruition here today with the content in the blog and things like that. So thanks for having me.
No, that's great. I kind of let one of my little secrets out here. Historically, on the consulting side of Citrix, right? If I walked into a client and I knew what the product was currently called because of the name changes, which, by the way, I agree with the name changes. The marketing guys have to keep things looking fresh and moving forward. So I totally agree with that, even though it does come down to a challenge sometimes for the technical guys. Knowing what things are called and knowing how licensing works for those things. A lot of times, if you just know those two things, you come off as a Citrix expert, whether you know how to set it up or not. Which for the most part, I know how to set things up, right? But just knowing those two things and how to talk through it is a very big value add for clients in a lot of cases. It makes for the consultant to look like they have a good handle on the Citrix world.
So that's actually something that's really cool about this new feature. I might be getting ahead of myself, but our new feature maps feature codes to the product names. So if you did buy a legacy product, or you bought the product a really long time ago, our feature maps it to the new product name. So anybody can go into the page and see the current and the old product.
Well, that's great. I'd like to see that in action at some point, because so Kelly, you're saying that the name kind of transitions through the portal, and you'll be able to see legacy names along the way, based on the way
yeah, so you won't be able to see legacy names, but we have feature codes assigned to all of our different products, and those feature codes are mapped to the new product names.
So that would be like, I'm sorry, Andy. So that would be like, standard advanced enterprise mapping to advanced enterprise platinum or what have you.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the big goals with that in the experience was just make sure that the language and terminology we're using for the customers in Citrix Cloud today is aligned to the offerings we have. So if they're in the experience and they're seeing they're running out of licenses, they know exactly kind of what model in addition they would buy if they wanted to add to that pile.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's jump into this blog. I know this may sound a little strange, but I actually do want to go through the blog kind of section by section, even paragraph by paragraph, to make sure that people are getting the content from it. I love how it starts, and we kind of hit it on it here. For IT admins juggling licensing, whether it's Citrix or Adobe or dare I say Microsoft, it's a challenge, right? And there's business justification for why it's extremely important to understand what licenses you have, which ones you own, and which ones you're using, right? There's lots of organizations out there spending a lot of money on software licensing for products they're not actually using, and Citrix is doing a big favor to the Citrix admin here by giving them one place to go look and kind of aggregate, figure out what's going on. So if I jump into the Simplify Licensing Management section of the blog, there's 3 bullets that are highlighted here. One says managing solution uptime and reliability. Daniel, Kelly, any things you want to share about that particular topic?
Definitely. So a big problem is, especially for on-prem environments, is customers aren't able to see, what their usage is, how close they are to running out. And that's what is a huge, really cool feature about this, is because users no longer have to go from license server to license server to see that usage. It's all conveniently laid out in a nice dashboard in the platform.
Yeah, especially good for people who have multiple license servers, multiple locations, multiple companies, multiple departments. Yeah, I could see that being a big value.
So what I'd add is just that in the on-prem deployments today, if you run out of licenses, users can't connect. So if you're in charge of the Citrix estate and you're running critical workload, which tons and tons of customers are, hospitals, banks, call centers, etc., and you run out of licenses or forget to put a new file on after you renewed, etc., you have an outage. And in this day and age, the outages and downtime in your IT environment is money out the door, right? So it's just an area that admins need to be on top of. It's not a hard thing to do, but if you lose sight of it, it can really burn you.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, it's, the business relies on IT, and we're supposed to be an enabler for the business. And right, if we don't have licenses, especially in a world where we're user device licenses, it was one thing back in the day when it was concurrent and you just bought a whole bunch of extra and spent extra money. But now that we're trying to be much more efficient with user device licenses, it really has become a challenge to make sure you had the licenses covered without overspending at the same time.
Yeah, and user behavior is changing, so more and more devices are connecting, which could impact your utilization, right? So it's good to just have eyes on it and be aware of if you're running out or not, or if your file needs to be updated.
Well, and if we're doing our job right as Citrix admins, with the demand should be growing for the product that we're providing to the business, and hopefully we're going to run out of licenses because that means we're doing our job well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the second bullet, which I think goes right along with that. And Bill, feel free to just jump in at any point in time. I'll try to leave some pregnant pauses in there for you too. But the next topic is maintaining business compliance, which I think goes right along with what we were just talking about. Daniel, Kelly, anything additional that you'd want to add that we haven't covered yet?
Yeah, I mean, so for me on the compliance side, it's more and more front and center in organizations today where they have an activity that they have to basically inventory what we've purchased, who's getting it, and essentially prove to compliance or other accounting officers within the company that, we're compliant here and that there's no risk that we're going to get a big bill later on because we were overusing and or get hit with, overage fees or something else. So people are responsible within these organizations for producing those reports and owning that inventory and reporting on it. And it's frankly can be quite the burden because what's interesting about it is it's a mix between the technical world where Citrix admins need to kind of go digging for this information on license servers today, and a business function, which is like, hey, where's the report? I need to send it upstream. So usually there's multiple stakeholders involved in this end-to-end compliance process. And this solution is positioned so that, the technical team can go and do their thing one time, update these license servers and get the usage flowing into this new cloud reporting UI. And then other stakeholders can come in just to the cloud portal and read and consume that data and take it forward on reports. So there's no longer this like hard linkage of people and process where a ticket gets created, the admin has to run around to the license servers, scoop up all the data. They probably send it over in 10 different Excel sheets to the compliance guy. Then they get stuck merging it all together. And it's probably a little tug of war of who's delivering what. But ultimately, there's a bunch of people involved. It needs to get done. And this is here to help kind of streamline that and let everyone have a better experience with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've seen that firsthand, and most of the time it's they'll turn around and look across the table at me and say, "Can you help me figure this out?" Because most of the time they don't even know. They just know they have X number of licenses they bought. They put them on the server, and that's it.
Yeah, I know as a former accountant / auditor that asking customer finance folks for software licensing is always historically when I did that was always met with blank stares and often a rush to try to obtain the information in a form that was sufficient for our purposes. And something like this certainly would make life easier for admins to be able to demonstrate that in a consolidated fashion without all the effort necessary to do it, which is pretty much another way of saying what you just said, Daniel.
Yeah, hopefully they can self-service, right? In that
Absolutely.
role, the admins do it once and they get it set up and they say, guys, the information's here. If you need it, go get it.
Right.
Yeah, self-service real time. That's what's so awesome about it. So next bullet we have here is mitigating solution cost. Understanding license usage helps for trends and forecasting. Daniel, Kelly, anything additional you want to talk about that topic?
So this is really neat because it's really so hard to right size how many licenses you need because gathering the data on how many licenses you use is such a complicated process. So this is why it's so neat, is because you're able to actually see how much you're using, and you can use that to predict how much you're going to use, or find a package of licenses that works best for you.
That's interesting. Are there other sorry to kind of change topics slightly, but are there other licensing tools that aggregate multiple vendor types of licensing that what the on-prem solution that reports up to the cloud could also report to?
Are you thinking like, can you help me with my SPLA licensing?
Well, like Avanti, for example, has a licensed server that aggregates a bunch of different software vendors licensing into one place. Obviously, goal for Citrix, and maybe this is a long-term goal here, is to be that repository in the cloud for not just Citrix licensing, but other types of licensing. But I guess I should go back and explain that the way the solution works, right? Your on-prem license server or your cloud licensing or both, they kind of aggregate into one single place. That's kind of the goal of this whole thing, I believe. Is there a long-term plan to bring in other software vendors where you're aggregating their licenses as well?
So we don't have plans to really like have an offering that helps partners or customers manage across, a bunch of different vendors. I could see areas where, Citrix has an offering dependent on a Microsoft license and we want to sell it as a single subscription price. So we kind of roll in or bundle other vendor stuff as needed into an offering. And in that use case, I could see us having that experience. We're even like looking at some of that with our desktop as a service offering in that licensing experience. But as far as like, hey, can I get my storage vendors usage within the Citrix Cloud portal? Honestly, it's not something on our current plans or strategy. We're focused really on our own house of licensing right now. And once we get all that right, we might be able to open our doors to some different use cases, but we certainly have a roadmap ahead of us for our own licensing estate and lots of interesting changes there happening at Citrix as we go into the cloud and look at our offering strategy. So I think they'll be keeping us busy on the Citrix side for some time.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about the world of Citrix these days, right? You have the premier on-prem virtual app and desktop solution. You've got to move that to as a service, aka cloud. And so, yeah, you're right. You've got the best product to move to the cloud, but that creates a whole nother problem of moving the best, most robust product to the cloud. So yeah, you guys are going to be busy for a while, but you're definitely making some big strides for sure.
We've definitely heard that request before, though, from our service provider partners, especially who have Microsoft SPLA and other type of licensing running under the solution. And a lot of times Citrix is that workspace experience we deliver that encapsulates a lot of these other vendors' stuff. So it would be great if we could cover all that, but it's just something that we're gonna be cautious not to extend ourselves into that area until our offerings super on point.
Okay. Hey guys, the next session of the blog is titled Easier Navigation of Licensing. Before we jump into that, I'll make one quick comment. I talk to people all the time and I ask them, what version of Citrix are they running? And most of the time they come back with a number. I'm sorry, I ask them what edition they're running, and most of the time they come back with a number. So their edition will be 7.15. I'm like, no, what edition? Are you running, virtual apps and desktop service? Are you running premium, what used to be called platinums in desktop, or now it's called virtual apps and desktop? But my pointing all that is a lot of times people are confused by what edition means. This next section of the article talks about how this aggregation of the licensing with the editions being called out is going to help people be able to more readily answer that question real time with valid information. So Daniel, Kelly, thoughts on how you guys are accomplishing that?
Definitely. So this is kind of what I touched on earlier about the mapping the product code, the product editions. That we are basically trying to build an experience where the data is digestible, just because we do know that there are so many different editions, different services and all that sort, and different licensing models. So our really big, our goal of this page is to make licensing easier to understand for customers.
And kind of along those same lines, relative to easy to understand, I know that we'll probably touch on this in a minute, so I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but nevertheless, is it really, Kelly, as simple as the latest version of the license server and you point it to the cloud account and that's pretty much it? I mean, is it really that simple for a customer to set up?
Yeah, so it's actually only 3 steps, right? So you're going to make, so you're going to make sure that your license server is on the latest version.
Sure.
The new, so the version that handles this new feature is going to be 11.15. And all you have to do is register that license server with Citrix Cloud. It's a very easy process. We really wanted to make the registration process as easy as possible. And then all you have to do is log on to your Citrix Cloud platform and your data is flowing right then and there.
Cool.
So Kelly, just to confirm, it's 11.15 of the license server is the version that's needed?
Correct, yep.
And then anything after that, in theory, should be able to report. Does it need some type of service account to report it to the cloud, or is it anonymous?
You do need a Citrix Cloud account, so you'll kind of explicitly register your license server to your Citrix Cloud account. We use a code-based approach, kind of like if you've done an Apple TV or a Roku or a consumer device there. You get a code on the license server, you log into your Citrix Cloud account, put the code in, and then it basically links them up.
Yeah.
And so, but creating a Citrix Cloud account is super easy. The whole solution's free, so there's no entitlement or purchase or subscription you need to own to use this kit. And when you upgrade your license server, unless you're really coming from like 1991, you can do an in-place upgrade, and it's next. You don't have to move license files or mess with any of that stuff. So very lightweight to get on board. Yep.
And presumably we can assure customers it has no impact whatsoever on the ability of their products to check licenses out or return them to the license server, because that's going to be one of the first things that's going to come out of some customers' mouths is this going to mess up my licensing delivery? And obviously the answer to that question is no, but I felt like we might want to restate it.
That's correct. There is no impact to your existing environment. No real overhead on the license server because a lot of the usage is there anyway. We're just really getting it bundled and transmitting it to Citrix Cloud.
Perfect.
That's great. Hey, quick technical question here. If the user who connected it to Citrix Cloud leaves the organization, does it still continue to function? Yep.
So it's registration is actually a new thing we brought to market with this solution. So it's kind of behind the scenes of this, but product registration is something you'll be seeing more of across the Citrix portfolio, especially products that need to securely communicate to Citrix Cloud, which is pretty much all our products these days. So there's a process involved there where you need to get an API key, or what we refer to sometimes as a service key, that will allow you to call Citrix Cloud APIs from that product or server on-prem. And that registration process is what basically negotiates that API key. And so the registration, there's a page within the Citrix Cloud admin portal called Product Registrations. It's tucked into the Identity and Access Management API access area. And there you'll see a list of all the license servers or other devices that you've registered with Citrix Cloud. And that's where, like, if you wanted to pull the rug out, so to speak, on the solution, you could go and delete that registration. But ultimately, admins can come and go within your Citrix Cloud management plane and environment, and your registrations aren't linked to any specific admin. They're kind of independent registrations on their own. So no issues with multiple people being registering multiple different license servers. You can unregister and re-register it if you registered it to one account and realized, oh, I actually want to be in this Citrix Cloud account with that usage. Let me re-register it. So we support all that type of flow.
No, that's great. Okay, guys, let's keep going. You can tell we're excited about licensing in general, Citrix licensing, as crazy as that sounds, because we could probably talk about this all day. The next section of the article is manage Citrix licensing across all deployments. I think we've hit on that a little bit, but some of the bullets that are called out here are mergers and acquisitions, migrations from old environments to new. I mean, we see that every day, as well as the mergers and acquisitions. Test and development environment. Every Citrix admin should have a test environment that is aligned with their production environment, and this is a great way to kind of help that come together and see where licenses are being used where. Multiple data center and multi-cloud environments. That's, you don't go outside and look and see one cloud. You go outside and look multiple clouds, which, as we all know, is just somebody else's data center providing you a service. So a great way this is yet another way to kind of aggregate those services. And then high availability and disaster recovery, guys. I mean, we could talk about those topics for a month, probably between the four of us. But Daniel and Kelly, you want to kind of hit on what you were covering there in that section of the article?
Yeah, definitely. So something we really want to emphasize with this new feature is this concept of a single pane of glass. So, traditionally, in order to get this data, you'd have to go from license server to license server. You'd have to get all the data, aggregate it yourself, and then, hand it over to whoever you needed to hand it over, or, to view it. But what's so neat about this is it's all just right there on one page. And it's broken down in a way to where you can, see how everything's organized, see your usage, and then go into the usage details view to see a historical trend of, how it's performed over time, and so on.
Yeah, I think this is one of the big value adds of this solution is the aggregation play, because a lot of customers have multiple license servers deployed out there, and the activity to actually get to, like, what is my licensing estate or my Citrix estate all up is painful. If you do it yourself, you got to run around to these license servers, take the data to go into Excel or some other tool, and merge it all up. And of course, that's just a snapshot of time. So a month goes by, the audit guy comes by again, you got to do it all over again. It's just cycles. And by the way, who has access to the Citrix license server? Some of your probably highest paid admins. So you're ticketing against some pretty costly individuals to go and do some of these activities. So this is really a good play for us, and we're able to then organize and aggregate around the additions and modes so that you can see how much CCU Platinum do I have across my estate. And something like that is really interesting as you acquire and kind of merge with other companies, because pretty sure when they were doing the big acquisition deal, they weren't looking at the Citrix licensing estate and what it would mean to bring it together, right? All that happens after the fact. It lands on a Citrix team to say, hey, by the end of the year, get us all aligned on the same tech solution, right? And by the way, we need all the same apps and all that other stuff too. So just one of many aspects of that Citrix, joining those two Citrix worlds together across a merger or acquisition, but a good one from the kind of business process and well, how many licenses do we own now that we're two companies in one?
So Daniel, you're saying that company A buys company B and nobody thinks of whether the technology's in place to support it? I'm joking.
Yeah, I was like, wait, is he serious? Yeah.
You're obviously
they think about it, but yeah, go ahead, guys. Sorry.
Well, no, you're right. So they think about it in terms of their ERP or their CRM. So the applications, right? They think about the applications, at least we hope they do. But the thing that makes the application work, whether it's the infrastructure or the middleware, those are often afterthoughts. And that's what you guys are pointing out here, is this is a way to, if you can't get ahead of it, at least be able to react very quickly.
Yeah, and there's so many changes going on across those companies and organizations during that time. So it's easy to overlook this activity of like, well, let's true up on all our Citrix licensing, make sure we're not overspending now that we made all these organizational changes across the companies. And what a better way, right? Just get the information going to cloud, and then you can see it trend over time. And with a solution like this, you could actually see kind of with some of the historic reporting we provide, things kind of settle in, right? After the org, right? And hey, we're going to be consolidating this to there, and now we're seeing these less licensed servers on our list to manage, et cetera. So it's just a good tool for that, long running process of bringing those worlds together.
Yeah, it's a great use of the cloud, aka yet another service that can provide value and efficiencies. I love it. I keep apologizing for getting this excited about Citrix licensing, but this has been something we've all needed for a long time. Hey, the next section of the blog is license server status. I got to admit, right? I'm an old school Citrix admin / consultant. I still to this day, kind of have a nightmare where I wake up and wonder, is the license server up and running? Am I in that 30-day grace period? I see this as a really valuable way to find out the status of the Citrix environment in terms of licensing, which, as you pointed out earlier, if it's not up, it can bring the whole thing to a screeching halt, as well as Microsoft Remote Desktop Service licensing. But the bullets we have here is license server reports every 24 hours, license usage shown, the usage tab to source only from reporting licensing servers or license servers, and historical license usage is not doesn't go away whenever that server's been decommissioned from the portal. Do you want to kind of expand on some of those topics?
So it's basically all there, right? So license servers report every 24 hours. They're going to appear on this list as reporting if they've reported in the last 3 days. And after 3 days, they'll appear as not reporting. And once they're not reporting for 30 days, they'll fall off the list. We also really want to make it known that all of the usage data on the next tab is going to come from reporting license servers. So we know that data is flowing. We know everything's going well. But the really cool thing about the historic trend that we're introducing is the historic trend isn't impacted by the reporting status. So that means if a license server falls off, the historical trend will stay as true up to that point.
Yeah, that's great. Just the ability to see a machine is up and able to communicate properly with the service gives you that peace of mind as a Citrix admin.
Yeah, I want to just add a little bit to what Kelly was saying. When we set out to build this experience, and we're in the usage tab rather than the license server tab, the conversation becomes, well, what usage are we showing? How fresh is the data? And if a license server reported 45 days ago but hasn't reported recently, should we show that usage, and in what capacity, right? And so we tried to get to a very simple, straightforward message to customers here, which boils down to, if the license server says it's reporting in the status page, and you go over to the usage page, the usage is all from these reporting license servers. And in the same way, if you're looking at the usage and you're wondering, well, what license servers are reporting this usage? It's the ones that are marked as reporting, right? And so a license server on your list with not reporting is not only one that hasn't sent us data recently, but it's anything that it sent us, in the last 10 days or something like that, depending on these rules we define, wouldn't appear in that usage tab. So we just wanted to make sure we had a clear message to customers on what is the usage in the usage tab, where's it coming from, and when would I expect, if I decommissioned a license server, when would that usage not be in that view anymore, right? And basically, based on these rules, that's 3 days after you decommission the license server, it's going to fall out of your current opinion view. But as we roll over month on those trends, the historic stuff's going to stick, because we wouldn't want to go impact your whole year's history after you consolidated your license servers or something like that. So it's a simple experience, ton of work by Kelly and the team behind the scenes to actually have a plan and strategy for this stuff.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of discussions went on about what to report and what not to report. So I certainly think what you said just then, Daniel, makes perfect sense and a great approach to it.
Yeah, guys, I got to be honest. I'm sitting here thinking about those conversations that were happening in conference rooms
Me too.
weeks and months ahead of time, and I'm just so glad I wasn't there. Hey, I did have a topic for you along that in terms of what you brought into the portal. This is all information coming out of the licensed server. Is there any plans or is there any integration here with your My Citrix portal that goes and looks at what you own that may not be on the licensed server that can also give you that insight as well?
That's a very keen question, Andy. You obviously know the licensing world pretty well. So maybe. Our approach here has been, first, let's build an experience on that. Again, the customer message is everything you see here is being called home from your license server. So there's less confusion, right? It's a very complex area for customers to kind of digest. And so our first pass was, well, let's get all the data from the actual environment, what's actually installed, what's actually in use, and make sure we deliver that. You're right in that the next click and opportunity for us is to kind of merge these two worlds of assets and entitlements that sit in kind of the Citrix back office, as we like to call it sometimes. And if our experience here is based around installed licenses in use, and then kind of what's available based on what's installed, there could be another number we bring in, like how many do you own, right? And I think it's the next frontier for us to kind of evolve that experience and bring them together. But we're currently focused on getting all the good data up on the screen. So it's not imminent that we'll have that like list of allocated license servers, or here's all the license servers that you could have reporting. But I think we could get there someday.
Yeah, that sounds great. Hey, the next topic you guys have on here is, it's called licenses installed, in use, and available. I think you're really talking about the UI here, and there's really three areas that it focuses on. One is installed licenses, the other is licenses in use, and the last, of course, is available licenses. You want to dig into that a little bit? You have to kind of almost see the screen in order to fully absorb that, but do you want to talk through that some?
Definitely. So this is just kind of breaking down what the numbers on the screen mean. So this is so the users can see just kind of how their usage is going. So, the number of use is pretty straightforward. It's the number of licenses that are currently in use. Installed is the same thing. Something to note that the installed number doesn't necessarily equate to how many licenses you own, because this is an on-prem environment. We're only able to get the data of how many licenses are actually installed on each license server, and then the number of available licenses is just the computation of what's left from the other two numbers.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Daniel, anything else to add to that? That was probably a really good summary of that.
Yeah, I think it's just this is where we have our eyes open on that available count, right? So today, and this is where there's some nuance, and it wouldn't be Citrix licensing if there wasn't nuance, right? So in the cloud, we have an experience for your cloud usage where we would say your available kind of maps to how many you purchased, right? And actually, the cloud licensing is a lot simpler than the on-prem licensing. But on-prem, the available count is actually what's available from the installed licenses. So it goes back to that conversation you sparked just a second ago on what is our opportunity here to have a purchased count, or could the available be how many I actually own. It's an area we have to build those pipes into the Citrix back office and bring it into this experience, but certainly something we can evolve. So just to run it back today in the on-prem experience that we're talking about, the license server, all the data comes from the license server. So we're focused on what's installed versus what's in use, and then the difference. But definitely room to improve.
Well, I love what we're really talking about here. What we're really talking about here is something that's always been complex, and let's give Citrix a break, right? So every software company that has capabilities, lots of capabilities, has license complexity in the on-prem world, because that's just what comes with it. But as you start to move to as a service everything, whether it's licensing or the whole product, a lot of complexity happens on the back end, but a lot of simplicity happens for the end user. And this is one way for customers to start experiencing Citrix Cloud, aka Citrix as a service, which will help their world get easier while leading them towards the future, which is everything as a service, depending on the architecture, right? There's lots of people who probably just cringed when I said that, but as a service is the direction everything will go. But it's just there's architectural challenges in some cases, but in many cases that can and has been solved.
Yeah, and this is a really great solution for our Citrix Cloud customers who have gone to the cloud subscription and the as a service model. That comes with the hybrid rights, which means they have basically licenses to deploy on-prem or leverage the cloud service, or a mixture of both as they make that migration into cloud. And so, for our hybrid customers who are in that state where they might have use cases or deployments that made it to cloud, but are still dragging the other rest of the estate there, they can have this mixture of both and see all the licensing funnel into Citrix Cloud. So they know what's running on-prem, they know what's running in cloud, and they know they're compliant and have enough. So it's a good fit for that cloud migration in addition to just running on-prem.
That's great. Hey guys, the last really final section of the article is probably what matters to a lot of people the most, and we've touched on some of it, but it says, get started with license server usage insights, which is the whole premise of this topic. But step one talks about getting to that on-prem license server version. of 11.15.0.0, and anything after that, you in theory would support this concept. Upgrading, download it, upgrade your license server or license servers, enroll in usage insights from within that software that you installed on the license server, and then log into the Citrix cloud, cloud.citrix.com or citrix.cloud.com. Either way, get you there, I think, and start taking advantage of the insights that will be pushed up to the service on an at least 24-hour basis. So, hey guys, with that, any thoughts on the steps there that I highlighted?
Something that we just want to reiterate is that this solution is available for free to customers. So it's a really great thing to take advantage of to get that insight that you previously couldn't get before.
Yeah, you can tell we're the technical guys because we didn't even bring up the cost until the very end. But cloud license or Citrix Cloud account costs you nothing. Every customer is entitled to it. And to integrate this license server usage into there also costs you nothing. So I'm glad you brought that up, Kelly. Daniel, you had something?
Yeah, just the other thing I'd add that we hear a lot from customers is, of course, everyone's very sensitive to the information that's being collected and shared in today's world around privacy, GDPR, all those considerations. And there is an option on the license server. If, by default, we actually send the username data so that you can look at a report of all the users that pulled that user license and when their last logged in time was, which is some pretty interesting insight for admins to know like who's using licenses, how fresh, and things like that. But if you're sensitive to that and don't really want that username data going up to the cloud, but are interested in the license counts, there's a bit you can flip on the license server in the registry that will actually scramble or obfuscate all those usernames into like GUID IDs that are non-recognizable. So we do have a solution for those customers who are, very sensitive to that user identifiable data going up into the cloud, and they can turn that on and still use the solution to get 95% of the value. They just won't get that per user visibility because they've chosen to turn that off.
That's great. We've gone this far, and I had missed that point that you can actually see which users are using which licenses. I kind of thought of it kind of an aggregate. That is very valuable, but I can see your point where some people would not want that information either visible to someone or in a cloud of some type. So definitely good that you guys have thought that far in advance. Hey, Bill, any closing thoughts or at least thoughts on this topic before we kind of start to wrap this thing up?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask the typical question that all technical guys ask of folks from Citrix, and that is what's coming in this arena to the extent you can talk about it. What have you got planned for the future, again, to the extent you can mention it?
Definitely. So what we're looking to introduce is more license models. We're hoping to release that soon. We're also interested in breaking down the views on a per license server basis. So instead of this aggregate view, you're able to drill down and see things in a per license server per product edition. So we're really excited about that. We're looking into some APIs for this feature. And another big thing that we are really excited about investigating is this idea of a role-based access control. So that way you can set certain people's accounts to certain access, so they can manipulate things, they cannot manipulate things. So we're really excited about the future of this.
Sure. So what about any thoughts about leveraging it for like ADC licensing, or is the ADM still the go-to for managing all of that? I'm thinking about things like pooled capacity and some of the newer developments in the ADC arena where something like this might be helpful to customers, or are we really focused more on the administrative elements that are already associated with that for that purpose?
I mean, we got a ton of stuff going on our broader licensing roadmap and set of priorities, but to address some of those things specifically, I think, yes, we want to help our gateway and ADC counterparts with their licensing solution. They certainly have a level of complexity and needs that it rivals virtual apps and desktops, so that they definitely would benefit a lot from this solution. We don't have anything that's like coming out in this quarter, but we're working with that team. One of the technical challenges we have there is that on that ADC product line, they actually have like an embedded version of the license server kind of running on the ADC.
Right.
It's a Linux-based distro of the licensing tech, and the call home solution we built is all Windows-based on the kind of flagship a Windows-based license server that runs in the virtual apps and desktops environment. So we have a little bit of a technology port to support some of the same call home capabilities on those. We know how to do that. We've done it in the past, actually, with some use cases. So it's just a matter of building out that roadmap with them. But it's not imminent, but I definitely see it aligning in that direction. Some of the other stuff we're working on, like Kelly mentioned, really rounding out this experience. So it's brand new. Kelly just kind of launched it with this blog that we're talking about. If you were to see her whiteboard, it's this matrix of these supported products, editions, models, all that fun stuff. And like, so number one on the list is like CCU, right? And so we've been kind of talking in context of user device licensing, yet we've got a ton of customers who love their CCU. And so we have a CCU experience coming. Kelly actually has a private preview going for it now where we can turn it on for customers. We're working out a few kinks there, but that's a really cool solution that tracks what we call milestone events, which are like your peak CCU. So peak CCU over the last 7 days, peak CCU for the month per license server and aggregate, and all-time peak CCU. So some cool insights playing there on the CCU, and we have all these designs queued up that we need to build to show the license load curve, as we would refer to it. So the license load curve of how a farm loads and unloads in a CCU use case throughout the day is something we're super excited to bring to data visualization for our customers. So tons of cool stuff around enterprise insights. And then, you know, in the future of Citrix, the license server hopefully goes bye-bye along with the files and all the other allocation experience, and we get to cloud activation, which is maybe another conversation for another time, Andy, on the Citrix session. I literally could talk all day about this stuff.
Well, it certainly sounds like there's a lot to keep you and Kelly busy in this arena, anyways, in the near term. So that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Licensing is really important and really where the IT and the business come together, right? That's where the money gets spent, and then we have to go make it work. Hey guys, I think Bill did a really good job asking you what was next, and that was going to be my next topic. But anything else between Kelly and Daniel that you guys would like to share with the group here before we start to wrap it up? And Kelly, I've already requested from you another podcast topic that hopefully we can cover in the coming weeks. But I really appreciate you guys jumping on. Anything you would want a wide audience of Citrix people to know before we start to adjourn?
Just that, check it out. Like we said, it's free. So, there's no reason not to, right? But we're really excited about it, and I hope everyone else is too.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. Get out and use it. Give us your feedback. Tell us what challenges you have or areas you need us to improve there. And we're looking forward to helping solve Citrix licensing for our customers. So thanks again for having us today.
No, absolutely. Hey, Kelly, if somebody wants that private preview of the CCU option, they just send you a message through the blog?
Yep. Yeah. Or they can reach out to me over email.
And it's just your first name dot last name at citrix.com. Yep. Hey, Bill, before we adjourn here, anything you want to bring up for the audience?
Other than just to say nice job, I think this is a great feature that a lot of Citrix admins have been looking for, and will bring a lot of benefit to those compliance reporting efforts, as well as maximizing the use of their current licensing estate, and also allow them to better predict what's going to be needed in the future. So I think it's a great step forward for Citrix and for the community.
Yeah, kind of along those lines, what I think I would leave people with is, one, the topic has been great. Again, the fact that the four of us are this excited about licensing is kind of crazy, but it shows that the need is there and the topic is important. Number two, right, this is our first real podcast. The first one was kind of an intro to what we're going to do here. And I couldn't be happier on how this has turned out and the content. I know it's not a lot of razzle dazzle in marketing, but it's a whole lot of good stuff that we've covered here. So really excited about that. Finally, the fourth thing, and I'm probably going to say this every single podcast, my number one thing that I love doing the most here at XenTegra is taking people to Synergy and getting people together at least once a year. So if you're interested in attending Citrix Synergy next May in Orlando, I believe it's going to be, please look me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a private message. There's all kinds of ways that I can come up with to help to discount the cost of attending, or to even get people free passes. I think we took 65 customers this year. It was awesome. But I'm going to probably end every podcast with talking about that, because it's one of my favorite things to do as a business owner and a Citrix person out here in the real world. But with that, guys, I appreciate the time, and I'll look forward to having another podcast with you two, Daniel and Kelly and Bill, at a later date.
Great. Looking forward to it. Thank you both. And thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, folks.